Hi, I'm Solène Tircuir, sociologist, global health expert, and immigrant storyteller.
And I'm Sacha Ledon, entrepreneur, startup advisor, and lifelong connector of founders from every corner of the globe.
Welcome to Beyond Borders, a podcast about what it really means to build a life, a career, or a dream far from home.
Each week, we speak with people who've crossed countries and cultures, sharing the challenges, the breakthroughs, and the unexpected moments in between. That's where the real story begins. Welcome to Beyond Borders. I'm Sacha Ledon, and this is Beyond Borders, the podcast where we explore the lives and careers of immigrants who've had extraordinary journeys in the U.S. Today, I'm joined by Florent Breton. Like many immigrants, his early days in the U.S. were not easy. And he drove for Uber while his visa was close to expiring, facing rejection from companies unwilling to sponsor him. But eventually, his persistence paid off, and Florent self-petitioned for a green card to the National Interest Waiver, unlocking new opportunities and allowing him to step into leadership roles at Tesla, as well as launch his own startups. Since then, he's founded and raised millions of dollars for two venture-backed startups, creating jobs and driving innovation. And with his current company, Parent, he has the potential to leave a lasting legacy. Today, he's not only a U.S. citizen, but also a voice reminding us that immigrant journeys are a net positive for the economy, for entrepreneurship, and for society. Florent, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Sasha. Great to be here with you.
Very excited to have this chat with you. So, kind of starting at the beginning, you had what you call a dream life in Paris with your wife, and you quit all of that to take the leap of faith and come to San Francisco. What motivated you to make that jump?
Yeah, you know what? It was very much a dream life. So we were living and working in Paris for about 10 years. My wife and I, both came from outside of Paris, but, that's where most of the careers start in France. So we were living there, having friends, family close by, very good position. I was working for a health insurance company. My wife was working in marketing for a very large international organization. And we were satisfied. And what happened is that in 2014, I sort of reached a plateau and felt like I was happy but not necessarily excited about what the future would be like. And there was very much a sense of predictability. What would it be like in 1 year, 2 years, 5 years from now? And I was not really excited. So what happened is that I decided to go back to school and see if I can keep on learning, meet new people, and open up new horizons. So yeah, that's what I did. 2014, went back to business school, and that has been the beginning of the exploration phase.
Amazing. So follow your passion or something that excites you and take a chance.
Absolutely. And so you know about business school, but in business schools you have a lot of people coming from all over the world, and they all want, at least in the executive MBA program that I enrolled into, they all want to change career and open up new opportunities. And I think that was the right place for me to be at that point in time in my career. I was mid-30s, so it was about 10 years of experience and healthy, and we didn't have kids at that time, so it was also, like, logistically speaking, quite easy. And then at business school, I had a class with one of our teachers at London Business School. Her name is Linda Gratton. And she talked about the fact that we're living longer, and then our careers will no longer be similar to the one our parents, had as well. Very long linear careers, but that will have multiple stages in our careers that can support the long life. And I was thinking, maybe that's what I need. Maybe I need a switch, and I need, to really change a lot of different things. So on the train back from London to Paris, I was thinking about, well, should I ask my wife to see if she's willing to move to the U.S. and make that leap with me and try to venture out for 1 year. So that was the rationale behind it. Was very much predictability and the lack of excitement about what would be coming up, and maybe just like understanding that we can do things if we decide to. So that was the starting point of that journey.
Yeah, and I totally agree. I think we're going to have much more, diverse careers with a lot of different parts to it, and get like follow-up education will be more and more common. But when you did arrive to the U.S., you started and you described your experience a bit on a precarious visa, driving for Uber, interviewing for jobs. When you look back at that time period, what mindset helped you stay motivated and persevere through that?
Yeah, it's a very good question because when you make such a change, you're driven by what seems to be a dream. I mean, for us to be living abroad and exploring new culture, exploring a new country, making new friends, having new job opportunities. You're driven by all the upside, and you don't necessarily realize that this could be challenging. And I was coming from a place where I had a little bit of work experience, I had a good academic background, and that I also had like a 1-year visa that came from the U.S. business school that I attended, and it's called the F1 optional practical training. So it's an extension of a student visa that allow anyone to work in the U.S. for 1 year. And so I had that visa, and the clock was ticking. And I think that was one of my main challenge, is that I was facing a time constraint to eventually land a job in the U.S. in one of the most amazing cities in the U.S., San Francisco, but also one of the most competitive one. A lot of people love to be here, and a lot of people, want to work here. And, me, my French accent, my experience in healthcare in Paris, did not land, very well. It was really hard. And as the time was just running by, I was less and less a good hire for people because I only had like 10 months, 8 months, 6 months left on my visa, and it was nearly impossible. So that was challenging.
Yeah, that sounds very, very stressful with the ticking clock. So I guess eventually you went through the National Interest Waiver process. And
Yeah.
I actually didn't know much about it. So I was interested. Can you tell us more about the process and what gave you the motivation to go for it yourself?
Yeah, so actually that's one of the things that you'll learn when you go to business school with other friends who have been there, done that. So one of my classmates went exactly through the same process, the National Interest Waiver process, or also known as NIW. And it's a process that allows anyone in the US to self-petition for a green card. So you don't need an employer to help you get there, but you have to get, I think it's 5 to 7 letters of recommendation from people who can say, you know what, I've heard of that person, he or she is great, and he or she can add value to the US economy. And if you satisfy, the National Interest Waiver process, you can get your green card. And that's what happened to us. So I started preparing my petition around the same time that I arrived in the US, probably slightly, a few months before that, because I knew that I wanted to have that option. And I, convinced people to support me. That was, the dean of the business school, that was CEO of publicly traded company, that were friends in founders, and the process in itself was a little bit time consuming. But at the end of the day, the self-petition process was very much of a fast track to the green card. We were able to get a green card approved in about 3 months, and that was back in 2016. We received the green card 3 months after that, but the first step, the first hurdle was approved in 3 months. And I still believe that you can get, this kind of National Interest Waiver process done within 9 months to 12 months, which is the average timeline that any attorneys can give you. So it's a fantastic process, and that was relief because, in between I was driving for Uber, and so I was like, okay, finally maybe I can have a green card and be more in position to be more hireable for local employers.
Yeah, I guess it worked as well.
It did, yes.
Yeah. So you changed, as you were describing your course and your career in your mid-30s. You didn't have kids, but you were married. You took a student loan. So you took a lot of risk and to take this chance. How did you kind of manage all these personal and financial risks? And did you have a backup plan if the U.S. didn't work out?
Yeah, it's a very good question. So, because when you come to the U.S. and especially in San Francisco, the living costs, are pretty high. So what happened, is that we had a place in Paris that we partially owned. So we sold that place and we sort of cashed out a little bit on that place. So it was not a lot of money, but just enough for us to sustain our project in the U.S. for a year or two. And so we were living out of our savings when we came to the US. And you're right to mention that I had a student loan as well. The executive MBA program is expensive, and I had to get a loan for that. And I was paying the loan, paying a very expensive cost of living here in the US. So the financial pressure was adding up. So I was doing like part-time jobs and including Uber as well that I mentioned. My wife could not work when we were not until we got the green card, so she was volunteering, but she eventually explored things that she was passionate about, and her thing was education. So during that period of time we tried out what could be exciting for the two of us, and when we got the green card, that was great. But from the financial pressure perspective, yes, I think leveraging a little bit of savings was our way for us to navigate through that time.
That's great. You were able to agree and align with your wife to both come over. How did you kind of stay aligned with your wife, and what kind of support systems did you have when you came here? I imagine not much beyond each other.
I think it's great that you talk about support system, because that's really what you need. And the support system does not necessarily need to be local, but you first need to be convinced that there is an opportunity out there, and that I think for the two of us, when we talked about it with my wife, we thought about, we are in our mid-30s. If this doesn't work out, we're back in Paris and we're going to be in our late 30s, and we're still going to have like another 30 years to work, or 25 years to work. So it's not as if like plan B was like totally bad. We're just like, let's try it. And putting that time in perspective really helped us navigate the short period of time that we were getting to the US with that 1-year visa extension of the student visa. So I think that really helped us better deal with the pressure and say, okay, plan B is that we come back and we would not have wasted our time, and it will be a net positive if we come back to Paris with that kind of experience.
Yeah. I guess you it's not even coming back to zero. It's coming back with more experience and in a better place even than when you left Paris. So
yeah, absolutely.
The backup is still pretty good.
Absolutely.
But obviously the original plan worked. Here we are today, still in San Francisco, and you eventually broke into big tech and got a leadership role at Tesla Energy as head of business operations. Can you talk a bit about how you got from driving Uber to the role at Tesla?
So I was driving Uber. I think I was also driving for DoorDash and Lyft. I think on Uber I had 563 rides. I was checking, recently on that. On Lyft I had a few hundreds as well, and I was trying DoorDash and everything. In the context, like in 2016, it was a boom around the sharing economy, and I was really excited about that side of the economy. And I wanted to see what it would be like when you were operating for one of these companies. So that was a driver. But for Tesla, it was just a matter of networking. This was a dream company for me to work for, and I've been networking extensively. They were just merging with another company called Solar City, or acquiring Solar City, which was mainly doing solar panel. And Tesla at that time approached me, and the timing was eventually off. At the time that they were about to extend an offer, they had some internal reorganization and it did not work out. It was a bummer. But before joining Tesla, I was working at another startup, and WeWork approached me. They offered me a job opportunity. So I was getting a lot of different opportunities at that point in time. I reached back to Tesla and say, hey, I'm about to get a new job. Is the timing better now? And they said, actually, it is. It is the right time because we just have the right opportunity for you right now. And within a week, I got an offer to join Tesla and lead business operation within the energy team. So that was great. That was really cool. That was a dream, really, come true for me. For a lot of people, joining a company like that, one of the big tech. Back then in 2016, Tesla was very much, the company that a lot of people wanted to work for, and what a joy.
Of course. Yeah, no, that was amazing jumps, and very cool how you kind of leverage other offers or other, role you're going to get to get the one you actually wanted at Tesla. And at a time when you're merging, when they're buying Solar City, so I imagine it was really a boom for Tesla Energy. You had a lot to do.
It was really a boom, but what was very interesting is that the day I joined, my boss came to me and said, we have a problem because the Model 3 is ramping up. So that was the beginning of the production of the car Model 3. All the batteries coming out of the Gigafactory are going to support the production of the car. And therefore, the batteries will not be used for the energy products. Tesla has some energy storage products called Powerwall, Powerpack, Megapack. And so he said, we're going to have to deal with that. And your job is to, work with the sales team and tell them that they can keep on selling, but we won't have any product available for the next 6 months. So that was my welcome gift coming at Tesla, just like facing that thing. And it was challenging, and I think it was it was a challenge, but it was exciting at the same time. Working with the rest of the sales team and the rest of the organization at Tesla, but I felt like this was a moment of crisis at Tesla. The company was running low on cash, and we went through what's called a reduction in force, or a RIF. That was the first one at Tesla, maybe in 2017, and we had to let go some of our team members. It was very very sad, for all of them. And then eventually, a few months later, once you have terminated individual contributors, they take a look at the org chart and they say, oh, we have too many middle managers, so let's talk about them now. And so they came to me. I jumped on a phone call with my boss and the head of HR, and they said, okay, Florent, it's your turn. You're going to have to go. So, the experience was complete in the sense of like being hired and being very excited to work for the company, and at the same time, just being terminated like that. But it was not personal. Like a lot of people, the VP and everybody else was terminated, on the same day for economical reasons. And the funniest part of the story was that I took a Uber back home from Tesla. So it was full circle about, okay, this has been my experience at Tesla. But at least I got a phone call. A lot of my friends, at Tesla recently were just like terminated over email or not even in a capacity to badge in at work. So it has been a great company. I think a lot has happened, since 2016, 2017. So it's slightly different these days.
Yeah, that's a pretty typical Silicon Valley story in a way,
exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
It's the highs and the lows and everything in a very short period of time. I imagine when you were driving back in that Uber, did you think you were going to be the driver again soon, or were you?
Yeah, you know what? I really enjoyed it. I think, I enjoy driving very much, and it's great. And yeah, I was hoping that maybe not. That would be a full-time thing for me, and that the Tesla experience could help me and land something great. But yeah, overall, it was a good moment of reflection.
So yeah, I guess it did push you to end up launching your own startups after that, right? So could you talk about how that impacted your next step?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I was terminated by Tesla, I really felt like there was no sense of security to work for a large organization. And if there were none, I was thinking about maybe I should create something, launch something on my own where security will be job security would be quite limited, but at the same time, the upside could be pretty high, pretty big. So with a friend of mine in early 2020, we thought about starting up a business. It was a B2B software venture on e-commerce. And we incorporated the business on March 13, and I think the day after, the whole town of San Francisco went into lockdown, and it was like for a lot of people, a change of how we would operate. But nonetheless, I mean, we were capable of fundraising at that time on Zoom, which were the beginning of the Zoom era back then in 2020, right? And so raised a little bit of funding, pre-seed round. We were oversubscribed and raised, over $1 million. And then the journey started this way. At the same time, I welcomed our daughter. And so it was a very exciting year, 2020.
Wow. Yeah, a lot going on in a single year there.
Absolutely.
Starting company, raising a new daughter, and pandemic. You're totally right. In terms of job security, I think that's a big difference when you come from France or Europe. That even you think at a big company like Tesla, like, oh, it should be secure, but in the U.S., from a day to the next or a week to the next, you can be in and out of a job.
Absolutely.
So you don't actually have security, and maybe in some ways that drives people to be more entrepreneurial because it's a bit flatter the risk between starting your own thing or going for a big company.
100%.
Yeah. So you're now in your second startup.
Yes.
Yes, and you've raised a few $1 million with that one as well. I was kind of curious, what's your experience as an immigrant, as someone who has obviously an accent, who's not from here? How is the experience of fundraising, and do you have advice you'd give to other people that were in your situation?
Yeah, I mean, the first advice that I would give is that don't be afraid of your accent. And, everyone has one here in the US and probably even more in the Bay Area. So at first, I was feeling a little bit uncomfortable with my accent. And I was like, well, I'm being compared and judged, maybe on that. And I was not necessarily feeling good about it. So for every one of us listening here and just not feeling so sure about their accent or their English, don't feel too bad about it. That's okay. You're gonna be fine. And I was able, to pitch to VCs, here in the Bay Area, and that's really not what they talk about. They don't after that Zoom call, they don't say that was a great idea, but the accent was very poor. We're not gonna support that guy. So. Don't worry about it. So fundraising has been pretty exciting, but it's also stressful in a way at the same time, because you have your project, you need to be very much convinced about the feasibility of your project, but at the same time you know nothing about it because you're just at the beginning of the journey and you're asking for some financial support to get answers to the zillions of questions that you have. So it's really striking the balance in between the certainty of the vision and the understanding that there's a lot of unknown that you need to address, and that you need someone's support and financial support to do that. But, the great thing with immigrants is that we've been through so many of these hurdles and challenges of, either at home or coming to the US, settling in, dealing with the new market discovery, in a way of like coming to the US, understanding how it works, building relationships, all these kind of things are sort of natural skills that immigrants build over time. They have to. And so when we go and fundraise, it feels like a natural extension of what we've been doing on a personal level. So I think there is a correlation here maybe about, the two.
Oh, very interesting. Yeah, I like that parallel. As a newcomer, you have to create your networks, have to kind of hit yourself in a way, and maybe that echoes well with fundraising and how you approach that. I'm also curious how you juggle your family life with your wife, a young kid, and building a company and fundraising, and how do you keep a fair balance between the two and not all your time on one or the other?
Yeah, no, I think this is a fair question. So when you are on that journey coming in, you really need to pay attention to the other one, and because that's your support network. You mentioned that earlier. So you really need to pay attention to that and make sure that everyone feels good here in your new country, and that was equally important for me. So my wife was working in marketing, and then she eventually decided to work in education. She was very happy about her career switch. She's now teaching kindergarten in downtown San Francisco, and she very much loves it. So I was fortunate that I was able, to pursue something that I was excited about, and she was also doing something that she really loves doing. So from that perspective, we had a lot of stability, and we felt good about, let's probably stay here in the U.S. and see, how long, we can stay and keep on enjoying this. And what was interesting is that you start talking about, let's go back home when we travel back to France, to let's go back home when we travel back to the US. And you sort of have the feeling of like you're shifting, where you live and where is your core sort of location. And at the point where you feel like where you are now is more home, that's a point of it's a sign of like being settled and being comfortable in your new country.
Yeah, that's a big kind of mind shift, a mindset shift. And also, so it kind of brings me to you becoming a U.S. citizen recently. So congratulations on that. What did that moment mean for you, and how does it kind of reflect on your self-identity? As you say, are you French American? You're more French or American? Does it change?
Yeah, it's very interesting. So. So we got our green card in 2016, and then 5 years later, we were in a capacity to seek naturalization and become U.S. citizens. And so I decided to file for that because our daughter was an American citizen, and she was also like a dual citizen. And during the pandemic, what we've learned was that it was a little bit challenging to move from Europe to the US if you didn't have a green card or if you were not, a citizen of different countries. So we didn't want to put ourselves in a situation where that would happen again in the future, and we would not be in a position to come and go in the US, visit our daughter, or, the other way around. It was very natural for us. And what was fortunate as well, at least for French citizen, is that you don't have to give up your French citizenship, so you can really keep the two of them. Mm-hmm. So there were really no downside. It was just a matter of filing in the paperwork, going through all the preparation of taking and passing the civic test and the interview and taking the oath. And the process was very much straightforward, but it meant a lot to us. It meant like this was the end of our immigration journey. I think we became U.S. citizen in 2021 or 2022. It took some time, like maybe 6 months to 9 months before, in between the time when we filed for citizenship and the time at which we received our U.S. passport in 2022. And 6 years after arriving in the U.S., we were citizen, and that meant a lot to us, and we feel that this is home for us right now, and we're not saying we're not coming back, but at least we feel good about it.
That's great, and at least now you have the option if you want to go.
Absolutely,
come back. You can easily go between the two, and 6 years is a long time, but not that long for many people. It take a lot longer as well,
I know. I think we've been very much on the fast track, for citizenship, because there is, we've been very fortunate in getting the green card, soon after we got in the U.S., and then 5 years after you can get to the U.S. citizenship. So that's as fast as it can be. But you don't necessarily. U.S. citizenship has not necessarily changed how we live in the U.S. because the main difference is that you can vote. But other than that, a lot of people do stay on different type of visa, green cards, and that works as well.
And I imagine it does give you a sense of kind of mental security and stability to have the citizenship versus being on a visa that might be, especially current climate, you don't know where that's going or that could be changed.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it kind of brings me to a post you wrote on LinkedIn recently that I resonated a lot with, and I was very interested in. And something you said in that post was, did I take someone's job? In some cases, yes, but more often I created new jobs.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you how you think about the role of immigrants in economic growth and job creation in the U.S.
I posted on LinkedIn at the time when the current administration was rolling out a new set of constraints for certain type of visas, including the H-1B, for which you would have to pay a fee on an annual basis and all these kind of things. So, and there were a lot of finger pointing around, well, immigrants take someone else's jobs, and I was not necessarily feeling good about that posture because this was not my experience. When I came to the US, I was not taking someone else's job, and I was rejected more than I was accepted at companies. I mean, for me to land a job at startups and Tesla, yes, I mean, I did eventually get this job, but after so many interviews, and I was retained because I was the best fit at the time for that role, and I deserved it, and it was really, I was really the best candidate for that. But before landing a job at Tesla, I got rejected like zillions of times by pretty much every other tech company that I could apply to, and that was okay. You have to be fine with this. But what is also like really nice is that when you are an entrepreneur, you're in a capacity to create jobs, and I've raised a few $1 million now, which were injected back into the U.S. economy. I've been hiring, 16 people, I guess, on my last venture. We are 8 team members right now on this new venture. And so, yeah, I mean, I have created job opportunities for others here in the U.S., U.S. citizens as well. And I feel good. So that's why, I mentioned this is a net positive. I don't think that my experience in my immigration journey has been a burden on the U.S. economy. And I feel that I have contributed to something positive. And people who would want to come here, I mean, they in the US, they shouldn't feel as such, a burden on the economy, but they should see themselves as, an asset and someone who can bring a lot to the economy, but also the culture and much more.
I couldn't agree more. For me, the power of the U.S. is from all these immigrants coming here with dreams and ideas and working hard to create the life they want, and along the way creating a lot of value and jobs and helping economic growth. So, 100%. That's why that post resonated so much with me.
Yeah.
So I do want to kind of, we're reaching the end. So I want to ask you a closing question on any advice you may have for recent immigrants that are in that phase of driving Ubers and their visa is about to expire, just like you were not so long ago. What would be your advice to them?
I think the advice that I would have is that explore, as much as you can the opportunity of staying here in the U.S. But if there are many ways of coming here. The path that I took was National Interest Waiver. There is a lot right now going on, especially around artificial intelligence. And if you can probably leverage that, that's one way to fast track your immigration in the US. If you work in that field, you can qualify for National Interest Waiver or some other, highly qualified visa. I think there is Visa O and others that could get you something faster than probably H-1Bs that are capped on an annual basis. So I think that's number one. Explore different type of visa and also try to understand what matters to the U.S. right now. And what matters to the U.S. right now is very much the AI industry. Mm-hmm. So I think that's one. Number two, I mean, if it doesn't work, I mean, that's okay, right? I mean, your experience of working and trying to make it in the U.S. will be immensely valuable wherever you go next. And it's not the end of the journey. It's just like one amazing part of your story, and everyone can learn and grow from that type of experience. It's extremely hard, and that's why It's admirable to see immigrants coming in to a new country and settling in and eventually contributing to the rest of the country. If it doesn't work, it's okay. You've learned so much, and you can keep on giving elsewhere in some of the great places in the world.
No, I love that. It's a great message to end on. No matter what, even if it doesn't work out, it's a learning journey, and you'll get so much out of it just by trying and taking the chance.
Absolutely.
Florent, thank you so much for joining me. It was a great discussion.
Thank you so much, Sasha. It was a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Beyond Borders and joining us to celebrate the journeys, the successes, and the stories of immigrants making their mark in the U.S. If this story inspired you, please like, follow, and subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast. You can also find more information at beyondborderspod.com. Your support helps us keep making and sharing these inspiring stories. Until next time, keep going, keep growing, and go beyond borders.